Welcome to the first episode of the SyncUp, Disrupting Employee Benefits. On this episode, we meet with the co-founder of Fringe, Jordan Peace. As the world is ever so evolving, so are the needs and wants of employees. Why should we be limited to only giving them perks that they can enjoy once they retire? That's where Fringe comes in. They are providing benefits that employees can enjoy today. We speak with Jordan on their company journey and how their product is changing the way employers view Fringe benefits. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the SyncUp. I am your host, Helen Rankin, and this live podcast is presented by SwagUp. This is our very first live podcast, so I'm really excited to be launching this and have our special guest here with us today, Jordan Peace, the CEO and co-founder of Fringe. So really excited to have you on board. So welcome, Jordan, to our first live podcast.
Thank you, Helen. It's an honor to be here for the first one. You're taking a big risk on me.
No pressure, Jordan. No pressure. We're in front of a live audience, so no pressure at all.
Sure.
So I guess I'm really excited to have you on our show today. Fringe is a really amazing platform for employee benefits.
Thank you.
Really taking a different approach on how employees and employers can actually give some benefits to their employees and use it as a recruiting tool and also as an incentive to keep people happy while they're, on board and during their experience working at a company. So we'll start with the very beginning. How did you guys even come about with Fringe? How did the idea start? Did you have a really crappy experience working at a company? Did they give you nothing but a pen and a desk? What happened?
I have had that, but that was not the precipice of this idea. It actually came from being a little bit on a different angle to it. I worked as a financial planner for a number of years alongside one of our other co-founders, Jason. We actually started our own firm and mostly work with millennials, kind of 30 to mid 40s, high income folks that were just trying to figure out their career and what to do with money and where to save it and where to invest it and when to buy a house and all that good stuff. But one of the things that we spent our time doing routinely was explaining traditional benefits to our clients. And it's not because we had unintelligent clients. It's because traditional benefits are written in a foreign language. A CFO I talked to recently, that's one of our clients, she said that insurance is intentionally confusing. It's just one of those things. And so the issue that I found was, as a financial advisor, I understand that companies are spending $10,000 plus a year per person on these benefits. And yet the perceived value of those benefits was about this big, right? It's just I don't understand the insurance. The 401k is 30 years away, right? And it just felt like there needed to be a shift to benefits that you could actually benefit from without being sick or dead or disabled or 65 years old. Where are the benefits I can benefit from now? And that was the precipice of the idea. It came from frustration of having to have the same conversation over and over and over again, to be honest.
Do you feel that in those conversations, and I've been in the insurance industry prior to SwagUp, so I totally understand the frustration of people they don't understand insurance. It's really complicated. But do you feel like the millennials or the new generation, my parents, for example, they would have never taken on a job that didn't have a 401k.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of the norm. If you're going to accept a job, it has to come with some type of benefit or value add. And it was, that was a norm. Did you feel the new generation has kind of shifted away from that?
I think that with the exception of startups where I think people come in and they understand look, some of these traditional benefits are just not going to be there right away, right? But I'm also maybe getting some equity in the company, et cetera, right? So there's a financial aspect. But I think for the most part, for most people, 401k, health insurance, all that is still table stakes. It's expected. But don't expect to get a great deal of gratitude from that, or people going out on social media and bragging about their health plan or bragging about their 4.5% match on their 401k. A, it's not cool, it's not sexy. B, nobody fully understands what they're getting, right? And most haven't done the math as to what that'll actually mean from them 30 years from now, right? So I think those things still matter, but they're not how you're going to differentiate yourself. You're not how you're going to recruit top talent, not how you're going to establish an employer brand that really stands out.
What were some indicators that you guys found, like aside from, consulting with companies with their finances, like what were some key indicators that you guys were like, wow, like we really need to solve for this? Like there's an issue in the market and, how do we come up with that product?
Yeah. So originally, all we really had on a sticky note was this concept. We had a name. For whatever reason, Fringe came to mind, probably being a financial advisor, knowing kind of the term fringe benefits, right? Which is really antiquated, and we're trying to refresh that concept, right? Hopefully we're doing that successfully. But originally, all we really had was subscription services, and we think that those will speak to this problem of benefits not meeting needs today. Right? Solving that immediacy problem. But then as we began to interview HR folks and ask questions about their experience, we realized, oh my gosh, they've realized the same thing we have, that people want perks and other lifestyle benefits that meet needs now. The problem is, if I have 1,000 employees or even 100 employees, there's 100 opinions on which perks and lifestyle benefits that I should offer, right? And so HR people are spending 3 days a week in some cases doing demos, right, with tech people in t-shirts about their new product and their new thing that they're rolling out, right? And that's become a huge portion of their job, is to contract with vendors and deal with vendors. And that's probably not why they got into HR in the first place, And so that was the moment it was like, oh, there needs to be a platform. There needs to be a marketplace where you allow employees to choose for themselves, right? And therefore, that necessitates an aggregator to come into the space and to pull all of these disparate vendors together into one place.
Okay, so you have this great idea, and how do you get that started? Like, you're like, okay, like yourself and your other co-founders, you have this brilliant idea, you see a gap in the market, but how did you actually figure out how to bring it to market, how to develop it? Like, I think everyone has these great ideas and they have, and they're like, oh, I want to launch this, and then how do you actually get that to lift?
Yeah, I think you have to be a glutton for punishment. You have to be more than willing to fail. You have to expect to fail, hope to fail almost, so that you can learn from it and iterate and do it again and fail and iterate and do it again. And that's what we did. We spent 6 months we built an MVP of the platform. We got some beta users. They told us what was wrong with it, what was lacking, which vendors we needed, which features we didn't have, and we tried some things and we messed up and we tried again. And there's no other way to do it in my mind. Maybe there are people that are just brilliant and their ideas are so fully formed that they just sort of turn a dial and it exists in the world. And it has that kind of market fit that it needs immediately. Maybe those people exist. I'm not one of those people. My co-founders are smarter than me, but I don't even think they're those people either. I think we're just willing to hustle, willing to fail and try again. And I should count myself blessed. It was only 6 months that we spent figuring out what our product should be and who is the persona that will want to buy it. And that's a relatively short period of time.
That's quick.
And so, yeah, it was quick.
6 months. That's really quick to identify all of that.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, 5 founders like that. If we had any trick up our sleeve, it was 5 people that dropped everything to devote themselves to this idea instead of 1 or maybe 2, which is more traditional. And so it's just a lot of manpower, so to speak, to just hustle after this thing.
So you have 5 founders. I didn't know that. So so you guys have a lot of cooks in the kitchen. So how does that work? So I've heard that more founders tend to be more successful. Like the more, one founder is great, but when you have 2 founders, it's better. When you have 3, it's even better because you have help. When you're starting a company, everyone kind of is all hands on deck. And, I know at SwagUp, we were very much like that. At one point, I was actually managing our warehouse. So, like, we were like, what? Like, you're the CMO. I'm like, yeah, I was actually managing shipments coming in, shipments coming out.
And you do what you need to do.
You don't really care about whatever the title or what your purpose of what you're supposed to do. Is just kind of like, let's just focus on what needs to get done. So having 5 people, how did you guys like distribute out? Like, okay, you're going to be in charge of this or that. Like, how did that come about?
Well, what was nice about it was all of the founders I've known for a decade or longer. Some of whom were roommates of mine in college. I know them. We've been through stuff. Starting a company together is not the hardest thing we've done in a lot of these relationships, right? And so there's an immense amount of trust in our founding team. So much so that I honestly, there are topics in our company that I think about maybe once a week, for 5 minutes ago. I wonder how it's going with such and such. And then I just, maybe send one text and, hey, everything's good, Jordan. Cool. I don't think about it again for a week or two. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So initially we had tech. We had our vendor network that we needed to build, right? We actually needed services to offer to employees, right? And so that was a big focus for 2 of our founders. And then we needed sales, right? And those were sort of the initial, right? And then obviously you get some actual clients, and then operations become more important, right? Because now you have to actually deliver well and have a repetitive process for that, or repeatable, I should say. So it's changed. It's morphed through time. One of our co-founders, Isaiah, originally totally outbound sales, fully focused on that. And now he is almost completely transitioned to partnerships. I've done, I think, all of our writing in terms of blog posts, and it's like the ad work and like internal things and so forth. Jason,
whatever it takes, huh?
Yeah, I mean, you got people. We'll meet with a VC, and then the next 5 minutes we're talking to some marketing folks, and then we're talking to the tech firm. It's just all over the place. But I'm preaching to the choir because you know that very well.
So, the 5 of you collectively come together. You start Fringe, and you bring it to market. How did you guys, like, who was your first client that you guys landed on this? Did you guys sell it prior to, or, prior to launch, or did you create the product and then start selling it?
No, our first client was a small real estate group right here in Richmond, Virginia, and a friend of mine, and a couple of the other co-founders actually. And we had he and his team out to our office, and we printed off some like really nice branded like brochures with little tiles in them of the different services that they could select, and they circled the ones they wanted, right? And we gave them food and beer, and we had a party, right? Like a launch party for them. And we hired a photographer, and we took pictures, and we wanted to make it look like a big deal. You know how you do. And then they went home, and we went back and we signed them up for the services that they selected, because we didn't have a platform. But we wanted to see how that went, how it felt, what their reaction was. And, it was another early proof point that like, wow, employees are really excited about this, even without a platform,
So the analog version worked. And what did you guys learn from that? So from that little test experience of having it like, just on a piece of paper?
Yeah, I think we learned that the diversity of benefits selected was going to be really broad, right? So almost no one picked the same things, right? Mm-hmm. We learned that people were picking benefits, as we call them, not only for themselves, but for their spouses, their significant others, their children, right? So it wasn't just about them.
What were like the benefits that you guys are offering on the platform? So people, like, you had this piece of sheet. What was on it that they could use for their spouse?
Back on the sushi menu, as we called it. I think at that point we had a couple of different streaming services. We had massage. We had things for pets and like child activity boxes. If anybody's a parent that's listening, you'll know KiwiCo or Little Passports, abcmouse.com. Yeah, I think we may have had Headspace or Talkspace at that time. It's hard to remember exactly which vendors we had now, versus then. But yeah, it was probably 25 to 30 choices at that point, whereas
Okay.
we're over 100 now. So it's a little different, but it was enough to be interesting. It was enough for people to feel like they were getting something personalized. And then the feedback from the guy that owns the real estate firm was just, I've never gotten more thank yous. I'll take people out to dinner. I'll send them on dates. I'll pay them bonuses, and I don't get thanked as much as I did for $100 a month in Fringe benefits. Like that was more meaningful than anything. And so it was really affirming to do that.
So the early adopters were kind of seeing the perks of offering these benefits, like, a massage or pet benefits and stuff, because it was stuff that they could use today.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a more summarized version. Yes. Well put.
So once you had your ideas and you had your sushi menu, as you say, what were some other things that you guys started learning, like, about your product and the results of it? Like, you mentioned this client had more thank yous than ever. What are some other things that you felt were surprising?
I think we didn't know how much time we would save HR and benefits folks. So because of what I mentioned earlier about getting on demos with different vendors all the time, we really take care of that for them, right? So any new perk that comes out in the marketplace, we're going to know about it probably before they are. We're going to vet them. We're going to decide whether or not they belong on the platform, contract with them, get them on the platform, and then their employees can just select it. So there's a certain amount of future proofing, to steal a phrase from our VP of sales, Dewan, who's listening. There's a certain amount of future proofing that we're doing on behalf of HR that I don't think we fully realized the value of that before it was already happening. Another piece of it is we rolled this out as a lifestyle benefit. Just pay $50 a month, $100 a month, whatever the case may be, and give them a lifestyle benefit. We didn't realize that once we aggregated all these vendors together, people would want to use it for that and rewards and recognition, for birthdays, for onboarding like gift boxes or, gifts, milestone anniversaries, you name it. And so we quickly had to build some features and build some marketing around other ways, other use cases for Fringe that we didn't even realize because the market dictated those to us.
Yeah, and that's interesting. Like, we work with a lot of people in HR departments, and
Sure.
I feel like HR is always that role that, everyone, when there's a gap in the company, like there's a task that you don't know who's responsible for it,
Right.
it's somehow always HR.
Yeah, right.
Like, and it's always things that you just don't ever equivalent to HR. Like, I don't assume HR is responsible for ordering everyone lunch, but somehow that task gets put on their
Right.
bucket. Onboarding, it's very cumbersome. There's a lot of steps to it, making sure they have somewhere to sit, making sure they have a computer.
Yeah.
Now it's even more difficult with having them remote, making sure that they have a chair and all the things that they need to be comfortable to work from home. So I feel like with HR, you always have like these tasks that aren't necessarily part of what your job really is. So it's interesting that your platform was able to kind of give them some time back on that. They must love you. Must love the Fringe platform.
So far they do, and we love them back. As a startup, you appreciate anyone who's willing to be a pioneer and to step out and be one of the early adopters, and our company's, not quite 18 months old, and we seem more mature than that. Mostly, thankfully, because of my 4 co-founders being awesome. But yeah, I mean, you just love those early adopters and, covet all the feedback that they give you. So we're happy to give them as much time back as we can and really be as turnkey a solution as possible.
How are you guys pitching to these HR people? Like, how is your product, comparing? Like, do they feel that when you're pitching them on your product, do they understand the value of it? Like if I'm a company and I'm like, well, I'm already giving them insurance. They already get a stipend for free lunch. You know, I pay for their internet. Like, why do I need to use Fringe?
Yeah, I think in the sales process, it's pretty interesting. I think our marketing, our website, the way that we present our vendors out there in public really filters out a lot of folks that would think that way, right? That would just, you brought up with me the other day that quote from Mad Men, where that woman like that works for, I don't remember his name, the main guy. It's like, where's my credit? Like, I did something great, right? And he's like, you got a paycheck. Like the type of people that would answer that way, they're just not booking demos with Fringe, right? Because we're out there talking about employees feeling the love and like employer brand and building culture. And if you can't see past traditional benefits, if you're still steeped in like, this is enough, we're just not a cultural fit anyway,
Right.
So most of the people that get on a demo with us, they're excited about it. And then they realize the breadth of what we offer. And they're like, oh, wow. So I was already doing student loan repayment. I was doing childcare. So you're telling me I just need you and my employees can have access to everything else, and they're just, so, as it really just comes down to going and winning the budget, coming alongside them and going, okay, let's go win the budget together. So that you can do this. There's very few situations where they get on a demo and go, oh, this isn't what I thought it was. Never mind.
Yeah. You mentioned something that I find super important in any company, and that's culture. And a lot of companies, and I would say us ourselves, when we first started, we had, we thought we knew what culture was. And I've always been at other startups, and now that I realize owning a company that they didn't have very good cultures, but why do you feel like that's so important for companies to have a good culture? What is like the benefits of that?
I think it's more important than ever. And the reason is, I think more than ever, people identify with their work. They identify with their company, right? It's not just something transactional. It's a relationship, right? And employers have been, to be honest, a little slow to realize that. But they're coming around to the idea that if somebody works for your company, it's part of their identity, right? I work for this company. We do this. Our purpose is that, right? And part of how I see myself is reflected in how I view my company, and even maybe more importantly, how I feel my company views me, right? Do I feel appreciated and so forth? So for one, I think it's the right thing to do, right? Because it's not a transaction, it's a relationship. And secondly, because your employer brand, like if you're a business owner, business leader, your internal brand, your employer brand is what's going to win the day, the next decade or two. It's not, even more than sales, even more than marketing. I believe that HR and how they develop culture and the way you recruit CPOs and employee experience officers, they're going to actually have more weight on the success of the company in the next couple of decades than even sales and marketing. Because let me think about it from a consumer standpoint. If I hear that a company treats their people well, right, I feel like I'm spending my money in the right place. I'm giving my money to good people, right? But if I hear a company treats their people poorly, I'm like questioning, do I really need that product or service? Like I'm not a big fan of that company anymore. Right? So your employer brand is your consumer brand, and people are just starting to realize that.
How do you think that people are looking at employee culture now with COVID happening and feeling like having your whole team being rushed to move remote for the companies that weren't remote already?
Yeah. I think remote employees have never been treated very well in the past. I think it's been a small enough percentage that for the most part, and there's exceptions. So please, nobody hear this and go, I take care of my remote. I know some do. But as a rule, I think it's easy to ignore a minority, especially that they're not physically in front of you, that you don't see or hear from often, right? And go like, well, we're taking care of the majority. We're taking care of the ones that are right here in front of us, right? And it's sort of an out of sight, out of mind. Well, that ship has sailed, right? Now everybody's remote. So for those that were remote already, they're probably going to get better treatment than ever, right? Because now they're like in the fold with everybody else. But no, I think it's going to be so difficult to package up office culture and ship it home. It's going to be really hard to do. There's no replacement in my mind for being able to sit down face to face with somebody, share a meal, share a coffee, share a hug, a handshake at the least, right? That is just something that I think we're all grieving for and aching for, and we will until this thing passes. So I don't know that we can do it perfectly, but I think what we have to do is we have to set up a healthy work environment at home. So if that means like what Google just did, saying, hey, we're going to give everybody $1,000 for office furniture at home to set up your home office, brilliant, right? I'm sitting here on an old shaky card table in my bedroom, and I'm just like, I need space, right? Like I can do this for a couple of months, but if this continued for 6 months, a year longer, I'm building a he shed out back, and that's where I'm going to work, and we're going to deck this office out and do it right. So I think you got to replace some of the things that they're accustomed to, whether that's the meals, whether that's the massages, whether that's the coffee and tea, the snacks, etc. But some things you can't replace. I'll go a little longer on this question because I know we have a whole hour. So I was like, should I stop? But no, I'll go.
Keep going.
One thing that I've noticed with my team, and something that we need to do a better job of, is giving ourselves margins to actually just hang out, like water cooler talk, right? It's just focused meeting after focused meeting after focused meeting. And it's like, this isn't actually what a work day is like. In between, you're around the coffee and you're chit-chatting about the weekend and what's going on and how's your spouse and how are your kids and did you see that ball game, which there's no ball games to watch, which also drives me crazy. But that we need to insert that, and I think companies need to insert that into the workday to have unstructured time that we can just hang out, because we're not machines. We like to think of ourselves as machines, but we're not. We're people, and we need human connection. And I wish I had all the answers, but we have to do a great job of that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think that a lot of people are feeling some burnout because of that, because you start the meeting and it goes straight into the meeting and there's no like chit chat that happens, in between or anything like that. So it's kind of just like, all right, everyone's on, let's start. And then you just kind of go. But we've definitely seen like a shift in companies wanting to prioritize culture with this. Mm-hmm. And, we've seen it with our clients and our product and seeing, employees wanting to give, everyone on their team, care packages and things to make them feel good and make them feel comfortable because they realize like, wow, this is really hard to have remote like life. How do you continue that culture? How do you continue having your defined values in the company? And I could say from personal experience, I was remote for one of the startups that I worked at, and the rest of the office wasn't. So anytime that they had like free ice cream at the office, I was on those alerts, and I'm just sitting at home like, there's no ice cream. But yeah, so like I can totally understand what you mean by like, some remote employees can kind of get siloed out. And it is easy to not that you forget about your team, but it is easy to silo, some people out if they're not in a role that's super proactive or in front of a ton of managers, or they're kind of more admin work or something that doesn't really lend themselves to kind of have a platform to speak up about things that they find is important. So for companies that are wanting to, adopt Fringe and use your benefits, how do they get started? So they're interested in your product. Like, how difficult is it to like have your product?
My operations people won't like this answer, but it is incredibly easy. At least on behalf of the buyer, right? It's incredibly easy. We literally need a list of employees and their work email address, and then we need to know how much money you want to spend on them, and that is literally it. We just need a little census, and then we set an account up for everybody. We drip marketing to those employees ahead of time to let them know Fringe is coming. Here's what it is. Here's how to use it, right? Tomorrow's the launch day, get ready. And then boom, launch day, go. And
just
there's
like
no
that, that's
lift.
it.
That's it.
So they give you a list of employees, you guys set them up, and then what? Like, how do they pay for the platform? Do they have access to every benefit?
They have access to everything, and they just have it. So each employee will have a finite amount of points, right? That have been pre-purchased by their employer, right? And it's almost like going onto Amazon and someone's giving you, I don't know, $500, right, in credit, and then you're just sitting there shopping and using up your $500. It's exactly the same experience. We use points instead of dollars, sort of gamify it a little bit, and allow folks to earn points by filling out surveys or, whatever the case may be. But yeah, that's literally it. They pick what they want, they put it in their cart, they click checkout, and then those things are delivered either to their inbox or to their house, depending on the type of service that they pick.
Wow. And what are some of the benefits that they can pick? So I know you mentioned Headspace, and like, what else can they pick from there? So an employee goes on and they see a list of like different experiences that they can buy, or different gift cards, or.
Yeah, I feel like I should have just pulled up a demo or something early on. But yeah, so we're focused on almost exclusively subscription services. So it's our philosophy that instead of something one-off, like, hey, here's a $50 gift card to Target, right? You're going to go buy a product or two. It's going to be in the trash 6 months later, most likely, and nobody even remembers, right? Versus if you could have a service that is meeting a need or sparking joy or helping out your family in some way perpetually, then you're going to have a perpetual emotion of, my company's doing this for me. So I mentioned some of like the child activity boxes, some streaming services. So there's one called Owl Crate that is a subscription box for bookworms. There's
have like Netflix too.
Yeah,
like
we have Netflix, we have Uber Eats. You want me to name drop? Yeah, I mean Disney Plus. I mean all the ones. And don't get me wrong, I'm excited about the big name ones and the ones that people already use, but I'm even more excited about the ones that people don't yet even know about. There's some such cool niche vendors out there that are doing really cool stuff, and it's not for everybody, right? It's for a slice of the employee population, but I really want people that get on Fringe to explore it and see what else is out there, because there are some awesome services, and we want to highlight our vendors as much as we can.
Yeah. Do you feel like, the millennials and the new generation, like, they value that so much more? Like, why do you think that is?
I think part of it is because we think it's cool that we can live that way and sort of live like kings. Like, somebody delivers my groceries. Like, if you just said that even 20 years ago, it's like, what are you, a billionaire? Like, someone delivers your groceries, like, I've got a guy who delivers, like, when you think like the world moves so fast and changes so fast, we forget how absurd it is that we have some of the services that we do, right? We watch TV with not a thought, not a breath of a commercial interfering with us. We don't even have to click a button to make the next episode start, right? We're like, we just have cool stuff. And so I think it's not just our generation who loves it. It's every generation who loves it. It's just our generation who drove that innovation and drove the demand, right? For more and more of that convenience and being able to kind of be a hermit and get everything delivered at home and so forth. But that's part of it. And then I think so many of these vendors just do such an awesome job with curation and personalization that it's not just, I have a Netflix account. I have my Netflix account that knows me, that knows what I want to watch, and actually suggests, like, really accurately what I'm going to want to watch next. Like, it's a little scary. And that's just one example, but for one, it's just super cool. For two, I think we're proud of it because much of this is millennial innovation. So as a generation, we're proud of what we've accomplished together. And then three, I think it's that customization, personalization aspect.
Yeah, I feel like the millennial and like new generation, like we like to live in now, and I include myself in it, that we're very much like, I want to enjoy something now, not something when I'm 60, like 401k
Yeah.
and all those things. Like, that's great, I have it,
Yeah.
but I can't use it until, like, I'm much older. So I want to use something that I can use now. So do you
Yeah.
feel like your product, like with everyone working from home and COVID, is now probably even more important? Because like you mentioned, you have like childcare services and stuff like
Yeah.
that, like things for
Yeah.
kids. Like, I know a lot of our clients and even some of my coworkers that have kids that are like, I don't know what to do with my kid right now while I'm still working. So the fact that you can
Yes.
offer benefits for that. So do you feel like your products kind of fits more in line right now?
Yeah, it does. I mean, as much as personally, I wish that we were back in the office and seeing each other and having that human interaction, yes, from a business standpoint, it's absolutely, we're pleased that we can serve in an even greater capacity right now, because, yeah, I mean, especially, I shouldn't say especially, because that's just my perspective. But I mean, if you have children and they're not at school, right? Like, all of a sudden everyone has made the decision to homeschool, like overnight. We're all homeschooling now. Like, that is a huge interference of life, right? Whether you have one working spouse or two or whatever the case may be, that is a huge change, and very sudden change. So yeah, that things for kids, things for just kind of reducing stress, and maybe having something like a headspace or a talk space to kind of have some therapy or some time to meditate or relax. I mean, it's just, there's so much stress on all of us that I don't think we've even fully begun to appreciate the stress that this has caused.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, companies have to go way above and beyond what they ever have before to take care of people right now.
What are some of the companies that are using you guys right now that are like so ecstatic that they're offering, these benefits to their employees while they're remote?
Yeah, I don't know who I have got permission to name drop, but the types of companies. What's that?
Come on, give us a hint.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Well, I'll just tell you one that we're super excited about, because it's a little bit of a foray into a new market for us. In Chicago, there is a network of charter schools called Noble Network of Schools, and they're about 1,500 employees. And my brother and sister-in-law, both teachers, have been asking me since the beginning, like, you got to talk to our county and like get us this benefit. I've not been successful on that front yet, but the first teaching group to receive Fringe, I felt so good about that, because if there's anybody who's underpaid, underappreciated, that doesn't have really what they ought to in terms of benefits, it's teachers. Amongst a few others right now, nurses notably. But we're just really happy about that. We love our tech companies, and we love our banks and our finance folks and accounting firms, et cetera. But to serve teachers in this unique way was just sort of just a cool impact just for us, internally.
Wow, that's amazing. And
Yeah.
that's really awesome. Like, I agree with you. There's some industries that, like you said, don't come with a ton of benefits.
Yeah.
So this is a really great option for companies like that maybe they don't have the capital to spend on 401k and spend on all these other
Sure.
perks and benefits that are actually really expensive. Like, and especially
Extremely.
if you're a small business, it's costly. If you're a startup and you're just starting and you don't have funding and all these things, like, to give employees some of these perks is really difficult for them. So to be able to say that you can offer some fringe benefits that are a little bit like something that they can use today is really amazing.
Yeah.
Have you noticed like certain clients like feel that there's a cost benefit to that as well, to your platform?
Yeah, I think so. It's difficult to just sit down with a spreadsheet and measure ROI on anything that has to do with taking care of your people, because there's so many factors. If somebody leaves your company, was it the benefits, the pay, the manager? Is it because their spouse wanted to move across the country? I mean, too many factors to measure something like that. What has been measurable is engagement with our platform, the employer NPS score, that net promoter score, and seeing that, move as a result of Fringe. And of course, things like recruiting referrals, like the amount of referrals coming in, the percentage of, accepts to proposals and so forth, offers, not proposals. But yeah, we're feeling that out a little bit at a time. Like I said, we're a relatively young company. So right now it's very clear, hey, this is a culture win, employer brand win, and we're making our company more attractive, right? Those are clear. The other impacts, I think we're going to need months and years, to measure and to really be able to say, here are the 11 different ways that you're going to experience an ROI.
Yeah. Are the employees that are receiving this, like, do you feel like they're bragging, like they're kind of bragging about this kind of stuff? Like,
yes.
Oh, like my company's paying for my Netflix or my like Headspace account or, whatever, my childcare services or my Disney Plus. Like, do you feel like employees are more inclined to kind of talk about the company?
I'd say extremely so. Yeah. So pretty routinely we'll see a post, an image of somebody opening this box or that box, or just thanking their company on LinkedIn or whatever the case may be. I know you guys see it too. I saw somebody from NASDAQ just the other day that got a swag up box and was thanking their company for that. And, we experienced the same thing. And that, for your employer brand and for how that looks to other people that are looking for a job or just kind of considering or whatever, or the friends of that individual that made that post that would also be a good fit for your organization, that's huge. That's better than anything you could ever say about yourself.
Yes. Being able to have employees publicly say that they're happy and they feel appreciated goes such a long way. And we've definitely seen it with, our own staff when we do things like this for them and appreciate them. They just work so much better. They work more. They're more willing to take strides with the company and, make sacrifices and do all these things. And, I think that's just so important. And you're not going to have the work that you're going to get out of it if the culture isn't there. So I have 2 questions from the audience that I'm going to now open it up to. Okay. So one of the questions, if we purchase a dollar amount per employee and that translates into a number on points, if the employee wants to use something on your site that requires more points, do they have an extra option to pay the extra amount?
They do. Yeah. So speaking of features that we didn't know we needed. So early on, the answer would have been no. And but now it is yes. It's a simple Stripe integration, very secure payment like most e-commerce websites. And they can, basically when they're putting an object in their card, it'll say, hey, you used 200 points, let's say, on this, and you're going to owe an additional $25, right? And so it'll just tally that up alongside showing you the points that you've spent, and use a credit card and off you go.
So they'll see how many points they have, and then they'll have access to everything. So it doesn't curate it down to what their points can offer them. It opens the gates for everything.
Right. It opens the gates for everything because they hypothetically could just pay for anything that they wanted on our site. And then we offer points back or a rebate, in a sense, for those purchases as well.
Awesome. Does anyone in our audience have any questions for Jordan? Oh, Artem as well. Artem, you can unmute and ask it. Actually.
Hey, sorry about that.
That's okay.
So I'm Helen's partner and Michael's partner in SwagUp. So I love this idea. I'm very big on it.
Thank you.
I think that the biggest issue that we had over the past decade is hiring, because we went from 10-15% unemployment to 3.5% unemployment, and money is it's very hard to compete with Google and Amazon in terms of salary, because they just throw stupid amount of money at people, and they don't, and they throw some benefits at them, but they don't care. They just pay people not to work for startups in reality. So I think that being flexible and creative with benefits is one way a startup can compete with an Amazon or a Google and get some of that talent. And so the other thing is employee engagement with the company, but I think also employees engaging with themselves. And my question was, I don't know if you have this feature or not, but are you able to match employees based on the benefits that they're receiving? So I don't know, for example, you guys are doing like Fortnite passes or Peloton classes, and you go, hey, Jack loves Peloton, Jim, and then Jill loves it. And you guys, all three of you have signed up for this Peloton benefit, and you should be doing classes together if you'd like, right? So adding the stickiness and the social aspect and increasing employee collaboration that way.
Yeah, I love that idea. We're not doing that. The biggest reason we're not yet doing that is privacy. So we actually don't report to the employer which benefits have been chosen by whom. They can see what's been selected and they can see who has made selections, but not the combination of the two. And so I think probably the way we'll do that in the future, and it's kind of happening organically anyway, people are using Slack they start a Fringe channel internally, right, on Slack and say, hey, I did this, I signed up for that, and, and posting GIFs and all that fun stuff. And so I think that's happening organically, but we'd love to facilitate that in the future with our own Slack integration to be able to announce if people are willing to display their choices, right? Hey, so-and-so picked this, and then be able to your point, pair them together.
Yeah, because I think that people don't know how many people in their company have similar likes, and especially now when everybody's working from home, I love video games, right? I'm in a group right now where there's a bunch of like startup founders and VCs, and they play video games like Fortnite and Call of Duty tournaments, and I think that's that's the new golf.
He's actually Arden's actually doing push-ups with one of our interns every week. So like, we found out that Arden, he loves doing push-ups. So he's actually been doing push-ups with them every week. So yeah, I think like the employee, like, being able to work together and do some team building throughout the platform would be a really cool spin on it. We have two other questions. What are some of the most popular items, maybe top 3 or 5, that you find have made an impact during COVID crisis?
Yeah, I think the 2 of the biggest are, and their competitors, Instacart and Shipt, have been incredibly popular. Grocery delivery is borderline necessity right now. There's Kroger pickup, and there's other things like that, but the best solution right now is to have your groceries delivered. And so that's been huge. Obviously Grubhub and Uber Eats have seen a big uptick since, no one's getting lunch at work or eating out, in a cafe down the street from the office or whatever. So it's, people realize I'm not really a good cook, So there's a lot in the way of food happening right now. And then I think the other category that's prevalent, and I've mentioned it several times already, is just things around children. Whether it's boxes that are sent, whether it's online platforms, whether it's educational resources for kids. It's just the whole world has shifted when all of a sudden everybody's got their kids home all day.
Yeah, we're actually using your platform this week because we just onboarded our new director of sales. And we wanted to do a team lunch with everyone. So we're using your platform for them to be able to use their points to purchase like lunch or somewhere from some type of perk that they want. And we're all going to eat lunch tomorrow.
So cool. That's awesome. Well, thanks for doing that. We appreciate the business. I saw Becky's question too around sort of the pricing. So it's basically when you get on the platform, what you're going to see in terms of a price is the market rate of that you would receive at the vendor's website. But the nuance is that we give points back as a rebate. So instead of discounting them, which would, in a sense, disintermediate our vendors from the market directly, which they're not big fans of, we can, though, offer rebates of Fringe points that go back into your account immediately. And you're able to get some other items that you may not be able to afford with those same dollars.
Well, I think we have 2 more questions. Can a company do a one-time fixed amount, or do they have a monthly Fringe benefit?
Yes and yes. So in fact, most of our clients are doing both. So they'll kick it off with, let's say, $50 or $75 or $100 a month for each and every employee. And then when a birthday or a milestone work anniversary or just a, hey, good job kind of spot bonus, those things come up, and then there can be an additional distribution to the account of one person, the account of everyone. If you wanted to do a holiday gift, you could literally just select all, put in $100, click a button, everyone would get that many extra points in the entire company. So usually it is both. And then how does Fringe interact with our current benefit providers and brokers? My co-founder, Isaiah, will kiss the person that asked that question because that's what he's in charge of in part, and a lot of other things too. So if we are partnered up with a broker or a benefit provider, we actually can get you some preferred pricing. And so anyone who is interested in Fringe, make sure you introduce this to your broker right after the first meeting so that we can get that going. So that by the time we're at contracting, we can get you that deal.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Does anyone else have any questions from our live audience?
Man, this flew by. I thought we'd struggle to get through an hour. And I'm like, wow, okay.
Oh, time flies when you're having fun.
That's what they say.
Yeah. So I guess, Jordan, how does someone find you? Like, how does someone get started? How does someone find you? Like, if they're interested in Fringe with, implementing it into their company or telling their broker about you guys, like, who do they message?
Yeah, so I'd encourage, is probably two ways that are best. One is we're all very active on LinkedIn. So anybody in the company you could reach out to, you're going to get a response. Secondly, if you go to our website, we have Intercom, which is that chat bot at the bottom, but it's not a bot, it's us. And so you'll end up chatting with somebody, maybe even me, because we take shifts on the Intercom, right? So yeah, feel free to reach out that way as well, and you should get a very quick response from us.
What are some closing notes that you want everyone to kind of take away from Fringe and employee benefits and how it's kind of disrupting how employees view their benefits?
Yeah. I think we've covered pretty well how the world has changed, how benefits need to change, how personalization is the name of the game, and how employer brand is going to win the day. So I think we've covered that. I think just in terms of advice, if there are any other entrepreneurs, any other founders listening, I would say, and this is something that I've been really fortunate in, I'd say surround yourself with, hire people that are smarter than you, right? Don't let your ego get in the way so that you hire people that you feel like, oh yeah, they work for me and I'm smarter and I'm better and all. Like, don't do that. Hire people that intimidate you. And if you don't feel a little uneasy about being the CEO or being one of the founders and feel a little insecure, you're not hiring the right people, right? So that's my little tidbit of advice, because that's one thing, maybe the only thing that I've done a great job of in this company is hiring really, really incredibly talented and smart people. And I'm just along for the ride at this point.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jordan, so much for joining us today in our first live podcast. And it was really great being able to learn about Fringe and employee benefits and how it's really changing the way that, employers can really give some perks and appreciation to their employees. So thanks again for having us, and stay tuned for more events to come. We're going to have another one next week, so we'll be posting that soon. But thank you, Jordan.
Thank you, Helen. I really enjoyed it.
All right. Bye, you guys.
Bye-bye.
This podcast was brought to you by SwagUp. For any further information, visit swagup.com.